What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about crowdfunding as well as how to bring something new into the world, into the universe, how to invent a new product. And that's really the subject of today's YouTube video, which is how do you invent a product at home? How do you create a physical product out of thin air? And how do you do that from the comfort of your home? In this video, we're gonna go through a couple of different stages that you're going to need to go through, regardless of the type of product, regardless of your experience level, wherever you're hailing in from in the world. Today's video is going to be extremely useful if you are ready to get that idea out of your head and to actually create something new in the world. And it's coming up right after this. All right. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, thank you so much for tuning in. Give me a thumbs up so that other people know this video is worth their time. And if you're a new viewer, I love putting out videos on crowdfunding as well as creating new products, marketing, digital marketing specifically, and really how to get something out there that other people around the world can own, can buy, that can fill their life with the products that you've invented in your head. To be able to build a brand from scratch and have people worldwide use your products is so freaking exciting. And I'm kind of giving you a little bit of the inside scoop today on how to actually do that. And we're talking about 3 critical phases which you need to go through in order to get those products out there into the world. So I want to start this off with an analogy. Let's just imagine for a second that we rewind the clock back many years, thousands and thousands of years. We're going back into the past, into the ancient history of our forefathers, into the times of cavemen, when human beings just really started to become human beings, and we really started to make the most rudimentary products and tools that we actually now know and use every single day, or in some cases we've kind of even grown beyond some of those tools. I want you to really imagine yourself back in that time. Now, if you were a caveman, let's just say, and you decide that, you know what, I've been hunting buffalo my entire life for my wife, and she's always on my back to get more buffalo, right, to feed the family, and all of a sudden, you're walking down the street, you're walking down, I guess, in the forest, right, and you see this little kind of sharp rock, and all of a sudden, you have this kind of epiphany, like, oh my gosh, this rock is something that I could use to hunt buffalo with. It's this almost like tip of something. It's like really cool. I could like put this into a buffalo. It'd be so much easier for me to hunt buffalo for my family. Could maybe even use this to carve up the meat, right? To carve up when it comes to the animal. But I'd have to be really close to the buffalo. I don't want to be close to buffalo. So maybe another day you're walking through the forest and you see this tree limb, right? And you're like, you know what? What would happen if we put one and one together? We put together the really sharp rock with the tree limb and maybe fasten it together with either by heating something up and making some rudimentary glue, or by tying it up, right, and creating something like a vine and kind of latching it onto it. That way we have a spear which we can use to hunt buffalo more effectively. Now, that's really how the beginning tools started to come into process, started to come into progress, that we would see micro problems in our lives and we would kind of organically or creatively come up with these different product ideas, try out many different iterations, try them out in the wild, and over time it gets better and better and better, and eventually we have other inventions as well, like the bow and arrow, like spears, right, and really nice looking weapons. So that's sort of one beginning process of making an invention, which I'll talk about in the first stage. However, then we start to become more sophisticated as human beings, right? Some of y'all are incredibly sophisticated in the way that you think. I have an incredible community, right, of people who are really smart and intelligent. And a lot of us, when we decide to make something much bigger, for example, you're trying to make a monastery, fast forward the clock a couple of thousand years, you're trying to make the pyramid, you're trying to make a monastery, or you're trying to make a windmill, right, that you can use to power and, when it comes to agriculture. You're probably not going to just kind of wing it. You're not just going to put one and one together to get two, because it's such a complex product to really assemble. So when it comes to this, we then started to get into more things like diagrams, sketches, writing things down, thinking about approximate distances, right? Doing math, these kinds of things to really understand how to make a much bigger product that's much more complicated, and in that way be able to bring something into the world that we couldn't previously, which is maybe a building, which is maybe a windmill, which maybe at some point is a wagon. So there's a sliding scale here when it comes to the difficulty of the product in which you're trying to create, or the invention at home. Some of you have a really easy invention that's not going to take a lot of legwork in order to actually make that thing, right? Other people have a very complicated invention in mind, or maybe you're watching this video, you don't even have that invention idea. So the first step is really designed for people that have a little bit more of a complicated invention, but even if you have a simple idea or a simple invention, I think it's well worth your time to go through that initial phase. And that initial phase is to get this idea out of your head and into a medium in which you can begin to work with this. And I call this really taking something in your head and putting it sort of in the 2D, two-dimensional plane, which is really just fancy wording for, hey man, go and get a scrap piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper, go and get some graph paper, preferably get a notebook, right? A blank notebook that you can sketch in or write in, get a graph paper notebook, something like that, and also get a pencil, obviously, in order to use this when it comes to step number one. What you're gonna do in step number one to get this invention out of your head is to begin when it comes to creating different sketches of that initial product. So this could be different views of the product. It's gonna be maybe different measurements as well when it comes to the way the product is gonna look or the size, right? It's also gonna be a little bit maybe shading as well to give yourself a little bit of a three-dimensional view. You don't have to be an art student. I'm not an art student. I'm not a designer, right? You just have to get something out of your head and begin to have this be on the page. And there's a couple of reasons why we do that. The first is that this is a much more creative way of beginning the process. For me, I like to separate creativity with more of the analytical side of my brain. I would first focus on the creative side, then we'll talk more about the analytical side. So you're gonna get a sheet of paper and you're gonna start to sketch out the different views potentially of that product. So from straight on, from above, maybe it's also some of the dimensions that might go into that specific product idea or that invention, and just start to get it out of your head. And what that's also gonna do is gonna start to fill in some missing pieces that you didn't even realize were there when it comes to thinking about this particular product. You might also have to answer questions like, how big is this piece of the product going to be? What features or functions might this actual product have? What are the size dimensions going to be like overall? How much is it going to weigh? So it's gonna start to make you and force you to answer different questions in your mind, and likely what comes out on the page is gonna be different than what you initially had as an idea when it came to that product. In addition, if you do what I mentioned, I have another great video out there on YouTube about this. If you actually get a notebook, you can then also see the various iterations of the product as you go. And if you take notes in terms of why I made that particular choice or that decision, or why I made this shift when it comes to the design of the product, it's gonna allow you to go back in time and really review a lot of your work. So you got these sketches, right? Which is the first piece of the process, right? When it comes to sort of bringing your idea into the real world, beginning that invention process. Sort of the subsection of this step is to really think about this more from an analytical framework. So beginning to go through that notebook, right, that you've seen, you have a bunch of different sketches now, and really thinking and specifying with a product document very clearly, what is the purpose of this product? What are the functions? What are the features? What are the benefits, right? I have actually a great document on this on a free course, which I put together just for you on how to make a product. That free course teaches you step by step how to make a product from scratch, how to create an invention from scratch. And I will include a link down below to that free course at crowdcrux.com/make-a-product. Really simple. And it's free. So, amazing, great. And it's really paid by a lot of the students that I have, right? People who sign up as well when it comes to my agency. I have a digital marketing agency. They allow us to be able to create great, incredible free content like this for you. So give me a thumbs up if you do like that kind of message and those kinds of materials. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. But that being said, the next step which you're going to make, again, as I said, write down the overall purpose of the product. What are some of the objectives that you have? What problem is it solving? And in addition, what are some of the features and functionalities and benefits that that product is going to have? Now, if you're not familiar with what features, functionality, and benefits are, you should also read up a tiny bit on that. So for example, like a function, like a plane, right? For a function of a plane, the plane can take off and it can land. Maybe a feature of that plane might be that it has wheels, right? Or it has wings, or maybe a feature of another product, or it has buttons, right? So the more you can get specific about the overall objective of the product, or some of the objectives, the overall function or purpose of the product, some of the different functions that make it up, the features and the benefits. So for example, the plane takes off and lands so you can get to your destination much faster than if you're going by land. That's really when you're getting much more scientific, much more analytical about the product creation experience, which leads me into step number 2, which is where we're actually getting into putting our hands and actually making that initial prototype. Okay, cavemen in the audience, so you are making this product. You're going into step number 2, phase number 2 of this product creation cycle. So when it comes to this, we really want to think about there's kind of 2 different ways of making a particular prototype, or what I'll talk about when it comes to a proof of concept, okay? So there's a lot of different terminology that's thrown around by many different people, and you might be an engineer, a designer, maybe you're neither of these, and you just have an idea as well. I'm going to be speaking to many different audiences in this particular segment of the video. So when it comes to this, there's sort of 2 routes. One is to create a proof of concept prototype, which I'll get into a little bit. Another is to create a model, and I'll kind of get a little bit more into that one as well. So a proof of concept prototype. This is where most people, I would say, start when it comes to inventing a new product. So what is a proof of concept prototype? It's really just as it sounds. You're proving that the functionality of this product actually works, that you can actually get this thing to do what you say it's going to do, that it can actually solve the problem that it's designed to do. It is a proof of concept. However, it might not be made out of the end materials that the product is going to be made of. For example, maybe it's made out of a combination of other products that you found around the home that you took apart, that you then put together in a different way to kind of create a proof of concept prototype. Or maybe you took apart other products as well, just to get an idea of how they are made. Maybe you used other materials as well. You went to Home Depot, or you went to Lowe's, you went to the store like that, right? And you got some PVC piping, and you use that to help you make maybe the first initial proof of concept, quick and dirty, it works, but it's not so sexy prototype when it comes to that particular product. This is an incredibly great way to get started. Many of my coaching students have also gotten started this way, and specifically as well, when they're beginning to make a model or sort of a general size of what this might look like, they're also going to incorporate other materials potentially. So for example, creating a model out of foam core, creating a model out of wood, creating a model out of chagru, creating a model out of 3D printed materials, right? That can give you an idea of the actual size and shape of the product, so you can move into the next phase. It also can answer a lot of different questions you might have. It's going to raise a lot of questions as well. So creating a functional or proof of concept prototype is definitely a hallmark step that all people go through when they're making a new product or invention. In addition, creating a model is kind of an optional step, but I do think it's worth your time to create a model to get an idea of it. So for example, a model plane, it might not be built to scale, but it's going to give you a very clear idea of what that thing is going to look like when you put in all of the work and investment into actually making that end product. And the more expensive the product is, typically they're going to go through the modeling stage as well. If they're making a building, or a bunch of buildings, right, or a collection of buildings, or you're making this entire new area of a city, you're probably creating a model first, right, to get an idea of what this sucker is actually going to look like. So at this point, if you have been following along, right, you have design sketches, right, you have a proof of concept or something that kind of works prototype. Or maybe you have a model as well, depending on where you're going when it comes to that. So you've done a lot of work at home when it comes to this particular invention. However, it is not yet ready for the masses. It's not ready for everyone to have in their home all the way around the globe, right? There's a couple of other steps kind of in between there. So the rest of this video, I'm going to kind of dedicate a tiny bit to that, as well as the next step to really level up this process. And again, if you are interested in learning more about how to actually create a physical product from scratch, if you want to learn more about how to make an invention out of the comfort of your home, go and check out my free course down below at crowdcrux.com/make a product. It is 100% free. Just enter your name and email, and you will start getting some lessons from me on a weekly basis. It's a great, investment of your time to begin to speed up this process. You can also be learning at the same time as you're going through this entire process of creating a new product. The next step, the next phase, once you've gone through a couple of these 2 phases that I mentioned before, is to create a prototype, and ideally a prototype that works. Now, this prototype as well might not be made of necessarily the manufactured end materials or resources which you're going to use to make the end product in a mass quantity, right? If you're mass producing this thing, it may or may not be made from those materials, or maybe a version of materials. Maybe the materials that you end up using when it comes to manufacturing are going to have different engineering processes, which might change the actual resources that you're drawing from, but it should be a prototype that you could show to other people and show off. Now, in getting to this step, I have a lot of students that I work with that are like, Sal, that seems like a huge endeavor, right? That's a very big leap going from something that's just a proof of concept, or maybe you made a model out of foam core, to actually a working prototype. And I do think that's right. There are a lot of different steps in between. And once you're beginning to go from phase 2 to phase 3, which is really a prototype, for example, that you could show investors, a prototype that you could show, for example, on websites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, which is my specialty, helping people raise money on platforms like that using crowdfunding, or even a prototype that you can show to other people, right? To see if they want to sell this maybe in their store, which may be fun, like a massive order quantity, or really pay for like injection molding costs, that kind of stuff, another partner, right? Getting to that step typically requires two things. First is to get much more deliberate about the design of the product using more upgraded technology and software. So for example, 3D renderings, CAD drawings, CAD designs, really understanding the engineering, the mechanics. Is it built the best way? This is typically when, if for example, you're a designer, you're gonna start working with an engineer. Or if you're an engineer, you're gonna start working with a designer. Or if you're neither of them, maybe you're going to hire a prototyping studio or a company that specializes when it comes to making different prototypes and designs, or you're gonna recruit your own engineer and your own designer to actually execute on this particular strategy. There's a lot of variation as well when it comes to the types of products that are out there in the community. For example, I've worked with students who have created new fashion items, who've created new material-based products, made out of cloth and like these different things. I'll work with students who have created electrical engineering products, right? People who have like different circuits and even integrate with software as a cool app or something like that. So there are different versions and types of products made out of different materials that have different workings when it comes to engineering, whether or not it involves a chemical reaction or engineering, electrical engineering, or if it's more just made out of plastic and has some kind of mechanical design to it, or if it's, again, made out of cloth, or there's something there when it comes to like a fashion item, right, for example. So it's gonna get much more specific from this point forward when it comes to the specific product category which you are trying to launch using a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo or raising money with equity crowdfunding or whatever it is. But lo and behold, this next step is really about getting much more serious about the process. Again, CAD drawings, 3D renderings, designs, finding a manufacturer who can actually create you that initial prototype and get this off the ground, or working with someone else, a prototyping studio who can help you there. That's really when this sucker is coming to life. And arguably, this is one of the coolest and most exciting pieces of the puzzle, because this is really when, like, you think about it, maybe this took you a year, maybe this took you 2 years, maybe you've been thinking about this for a couple of months, you took some incredible action, and then maybe you kind of fell off for a bit, then you came back to it, and you took more action, and you got further, right? You can look back on this process. You created something, my friends, that was in your mind. You brought that into the real world, and you were literally just steps from the finish line of getting this out there for people to buy, to build a brand from scratch, to be able to actually earn a living, right? Selling your products online or in physical retail environments, or even licensing your idea. There's so many different options here, or doing crowdfunding, raising money from the crowd, like I talk about, which is one of my specialities. But if you really want to supercharge this process, if you're starting to take action, or you just need help when it comes to those beginning stages, I do one-on-one intensive coaching with my students. This is people who really want to invest in the process. They don't want to waste time. They just kind of want a blueprint to go from point A to point B fastest, right? And also some of the incredible resources, some of my connections, some of the different people that I know in the industry, and also my Rolodex, right? When it comes to different companies that I've worked with before, or different prototyping studios, design studios that I recommend, like all that kind of stuff, you get access to when you begin to do individual one-on-one coaching sessions with me. So if you're interested in that, you can book an intensive coaching session with me at the link down below. Tell me a little bit about you, your product, your inspiration. Some of the questions may or may not be related to you, but just try to provide as much information as possible, so that way I can help you as you are embarking on this incredibly exciting journey, which is bringing a new invention into the world, making a new product, something that's so cool, and building a brand from scratch. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go and check out that free course again down below, or check out my individual one-on-one coaching, that option down below. My name is Salvador Briggman. I'm a super passionate guy. I got a lot of great videos out there on prototyping as well. Go and check those out in my channel. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Leave a comment down below if you want to say something positive, and I'll see you next time.